Paul Nation.
Yeah, that's the name.
I'm pretty sure it was him who did this classic study in which he did exactly what you just described. He had the same reading, but in different versions of that reading, he would redact certain percentages of words all the way down to something like 50% of the words, simply replacing them with X's or crossing them out or something so that you just couldn't read it, rather than replacing with words that students may or may not have known. Like that wouldn't be controllable.
Sure.
And so at the 50% ratio, and man, I should have read this before I came so I know exactly the data. But the point is that when he had somewhere around 80% of the words were visible and 20% weren't, students were scoring at like 60% comprehension on a comprehension test.
Wow.
And then we went up to like 90%. Students were still scoring somewhere in the 65, 70% on the comprehension. It wasn't until he got to 98%, where the students understood 98% of the words or could see them, that they finally were able to get a reasonable score, closer to the 100% score. Other researchers have replicated this study a couple of different times, and their results aren't quite as staggering. But there's still a really strong notion and good evidence that somewhere between 90 and 98% is where you have to know that many words to succeed. Well, then other researchers have looked at whether you can develop that amount of vocabulary simply by reading a whole bunch. And the answer is yeah, it turns out you can. They did a study where, study is the wrong word, but they did a kind of a logical analysis using corpus analysis. I think this is also Nation again. Maybe this was 1997. But anyway, the point is, by looking at the number of words a person would encounter in a certain number of easy texts to read, like Sweet Valley Kids, for instance, is a series about girls being raised in California. It's meant for preteen kind of reading, pretty simple stuff. Well, if you look at all the words, if you use a corpus tools and analyze that through corpus, about the first 4,000 most frequent words in English are used repeatedly and extensively in that text. And so by reading that series, you really get good at the first 4,000 words of English. But in order to read challenging texts, you need to know about the first 9,000 words in English. Yeah. And so Sweet Valley Kids is only going to get you half the way. You really need to be reading other books. And in order for a student to successfully get to 9,000 words, they'd essentially need to read 150 words per minute for a little over, 1 hour at 150 words per minute for 3.5 years. But that's not so bad. If you think about what's going on in schools, most kids do read. Well, let's say that in kindergarten, well, maybe not kindergarten, but certainly it could be first grade, second grade, third grade. If kids are assigned to read 30 minutes a night, they're doing way more than an hour a day over 3 years because they're going all through elementary school. So by the time they're hit 6th grade,
right,
they've accomplished that and then some.